Growing up, I did not eat much dairy, but then I started to learn a lot more about dairy and the crazy benefits it could have for my health and body composition. And I started to add it to pretty much all of my meals. The transition wasn't exactly smooth, but when I learned how to eat dairy properly, it's like a light bulb went off in my head. Now I'm able to eat pretty much any type of dairy and as much as I want of it without getting any symptoms, which allows me to take advantage of the ridiculous amount of health benefits it has. So today I'm sharing why I started to eat dairy again and why I really wish I started eating it a lot earlier, as well as the 4 steps I took to be able to eat all the dairy. Let's dive into it. My name's Autumn. I'm a certified clinical nutritionist with my master's nutrition human performance, and today's video is sponsored by Element. More on them in a bit. Okay, so the reason why I wanted to start eating dairy again was because of all of the insane benefits it has. I mean, we've all heard of the idea that milk is good for your bones, but there's actually a lot of truth to that because of the calcium and vitamin K2 specifically in whole fat dairy, the phosphorus and potassium. It makes it a ridiculously helpful tool for making our bones healthy and strong, especially the vitamin K2, which takes calcium out of the arteries and puts it into the bones. K2 is hard to find in a lot of other foods. It's really only going to be present in measurable amounts in things like eggs, dairy products, and then some fermented soy products. But then also dairy is a great bioavailable source of protein for a body recomposition goal, which is where you're losing body fat while keeping muscle mass. When you go about weight loss in this way, which if you guys followed my postpartum 20-pound weight loss journey, that's exactly what I focus on, was keeping my muscle while losing body fat. This helps to maintain the metabolism, helps to make sure that you're doing it in a way that's sustainable and long-term, and also helps prevent plateaus and weight regain. There's also some really interesting research on full fat dairy products and heart health risk factors. I did a whole video on that if you want to check it out right here. And those were a lot of the reasons why I started eating dairy, but honestly, the biggest one was because of my teeth. I'm the youngest of 3, and my parents really stopped eating very much dairy around the time that I was 6 years old. My siblings are older than me. My brother's 11 years older. My sister is about 6 years older. Neither of them really had many cavities or issues with their teeth. Whereas I, on the other hand, starting from a very young age, was just riddled with cavities. I absolutely dreaded / still dread to this day from all of that trauma when I was younger, going to the dentist, because it just felt like literally every single time I was going to the dentist, I had at least one new cavity that needed to be filled. And keep in mind, I eat better than my siblings. I didn't have sugar. I would brush and floss my teeth all the time. I did all the things that you're supposed to do, and yet I was getting all of these cavities. And I was always so frustrated because I would ask the dentist, like, what am I doing wrong? And they would say it's just genetics, but that didn't make sense to me because my siblings had perfectly fine teeth. And then about 5 or 6 years ago, I stumbled across a book that highly referenced Dr. Weston Price's work. He was a dentist, and he was looking at why other nations didn't have a lot of the dental issues that we have. And obviously there's the issue of sugar, but one big one was vitamin K2, which is really rich in full fat dairy products. Once I saw that, I found a plethora of meta-analysis and studies that are done on dairy products and cavities. And I found out that it's actually quite well known that the more dairy products you eat, the less likely you are to have cavities. And it's because of the minerals as well as the vitamin K2 in there. And it looks like some things that are inherently unique to dairy that seem to all work together to prevent cavities. In fact, there's a recent 2023 review that had some wild stats, like increasing your cheese intake by more than 2 times per week significantly decreases cavities. Cheese also helps to restore the mouth pH after eating sugar. And another crazy one, 200 milliliters of cow's milk taken actually caused remineralization of the enamel, whereas having the same amount of soy milk actually caused demineralization. So that means the milk was actually helping to restore the enamel. In fact, I actually had this same experience happen to me about 5 years ago, again, around the same time that I started eating a lot more dairy. I had a cavity that was forming and the dentist was just keeping an eye on it. Typically what that always meant was by the time I go to the next dentist appointment, I would have to have a cavity being filled. But by my next appointment, the dentist was actually shocked because my cavity had improved. It had actually started to almost heal. Wild, but I have the x-rays to prove it. And that alone is a huge reason why I started to consume a lot more dairy, in addition to the other amazing health benefits that I stated earlier. But I wasn't necessarily able to start eating all dairy immediately. I did have to take steps to achieve that. Now, before we get into that, I want to give a huge thank you to today's sponsor, Element. Element is an amazing electrolyte company that was specifically created with intermittent fasting, whole food eating, and athletes in mind. It actually contains the sodium, magnesium, and potassium to help balance out lost electrolytes, all without having any sugar. And I love Element. I've been using them for 3 years now. I feel so much better when I'm properly hydrated with Element. I have anywhere between 1 to 2 packets per day, especially on days where it's really hot or I've done a hard workout. I found that I do need that extra boost with a second packet, and their flavors are delicious. My all-time favorite is their grapefruit salt. It's just so refreshing, especially for summer, but their raspberry, orange, and citrus salts are all classics as well. And right now, Element is offering my viewers a free sample pack with any order. That's 8 single-serve packets free with any Element order. It's a really great way to test test out all 8 flavors, so you can get yours at drinkelement.com/autumn. It's only available through my link, so make sure to check out drinklmnt.com/autumn. The link is also in the description down below. Okay, so there's 2 main reasons why people can't eat dairy. One is lactose intolerance and one is a true allergy. If you actually have an allergy to the milk protein, then you probably won't be able to eat any type of dairy products. There's some theories that you could slowly reintroduce it, but it's something that you probably should look into with the doctor. But lactose intolerance is something entirely different. This is not an allergy. This is just your body is unable to break down lactose itself. So this means the lactose is going to go through your GI tract, get fermented by gut bacteria, and that's where it can cause some things like bloating, gas, or diarrhea. Now, I was actually mildly lactose intolerant before all of this. I would get bloated from things like cottage cheese, definitely from milk because that's the highest lactose milk product. But actually using these 4 steps, I was able to reintroduce all these different dairy products, and now I can eat pretty much anything. And the first huge step that I took was using intermittent fasting for helping to repair my gut health. If you've been following my channel for a while, then you know that I've had some gut health issues in the past where I just couldn't eat anything without feeling so bloated. My stomach would just be so distended. It would be so uncomfortable. I would have to lay on my belly after every single meal. So I really needed to address that first. Like dairy wasn't even on my mind at that point because I just needed to heal my gut. So I started using intermittent fasting. That's really where my channel first started, was sharing intermittent fasting tools and strategies that actually work and help to support health and wellness and not just skipping meals. So I used about 16-hour fasts without having snacks. That process helps to turn on the migrating motor complex that helps to get rid of left behind food and bacteria that would normally cause bloating or perhaps inflammation. I also drink keto coffee all the time because it is really rich in butyric acid, which has been found to help reduce gut inflammation. It was probably about 2 to 3 years of using this combination before I started to add in dairy actively. So then step 2 was the integration of some type of dairy. And the best way to go about it is using the lowest lactose fermented dairy products. When dairy products go through long aging or full fermentation, it helps to break down the lactose so you aren't going to be eating it, and therefore you're not going to get the negative impacts of lactose if you are lactose intolerant. That's why a lot of people who are lactose intolerant can have something like Parmesan cheese and it's not going to impact them because it is so incredibly low in lactose. Yogurt is another great example, especially fully fermented yogurt, which is why I started to make my own Greek yogurt because I had control over how long I could ferment it. And you'll hear people argue that the reason why we shouldn't have milk is because a lot of people can't digest it because of the lactose, and therefore that should be a sign that we shouldn't be eating it. But if that were true, then that would mean a lot of foods are off the table because eggs in its raw form actually has an anti-nutrient that makes it so that certain B vitamins can't be absorbed. When cooked, it helps to break that anti-nutrient down, and therefore it makes eggs a good option. Or then there's like beans, where we have to have beans soaked in order to reduce the anti-nutrients in there that would cause a lot of gut distress. Same goes for dairy because a lot of people are lactose intolerant, so it is a good idea to go through fermentation in order to make it bioavailable for you to eat. So first step, introducing those low lactose forms like Greek yogurt or aged cheeses. I did this for about a year or so before I moved on to this third phase. And the third was having slightly higher lactose dairy products, but still preferably fermented. And this was always a trial and error. I was always pushing the boundaries just a little bit more. Once I got my body comfortable to some type of dairy product, I would test something out that was a little bit higher in lactose and see how my body responded. If it didn't respond well, I'd go back to what I was eating. If it did respond well, then I would keep that in the rotation and then maybe push the boundaries a little bit more. So this is where I started eating a lot of cottage cheese, because even though cottage cheese is pretty low lactose, it still does have more lactose than like Greek yogurt. So things like cottage cheese and mozzarella were unlocked for me. It was great. And I did this for about like another year or so before moving on to this 4th step. And that's where I tested out just having regular milk that's not fermented. It's going to be the highest lactose option. But from this trial and error, I did find that A2 milk does seem to be best for me. So there's A2 and A1 type of dairy products. A2 is just a different type of protein that a lot of people tend to digest better. And I found that I can drink like a massive jug of milk from A2 cows and I have 0 problems. But if I have a lot of A1 milk, which is the one that's most commonly used, like if you're just getting milk out and about, that I would occasionally maybe get a little bit of bloating from, or maybe get a little bit of a breakout from. Still not nearly as bad as when I first started eating dairy, but there were some impacts. And the important thing throughout this whole journey of reintroducing dairy is just always knowing what your limits are and being okay with slightly putting the toe over the line to test those limits. Obviously, as long as you're not allergic. Now, if you want to check out my absolutely viral cottage cheese bowl, you can find that with this video right here. Also, if you're new to my channel and you love this science-backed information, make sure you subscribe right here. Come out new videos every Tuesday and Thursday. All right, guys, thanks so much for tuning in, and I'll see you in my next video.